My name is Chris Willard. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm an author, speaker, consultant, and teach at Harvard Medical School and do a lot of other things in addition to being a parent and a friend to many people. In my college years, I had a reasonably happy childhood and things like that. And then heading off to college, I really started to struggle with depression, with anxiety, with addiction in particular, and ended up taking a few years off from college to find myself. And actually, during that time, my addiction, which I'd hoped was going to get better, actually just got worse and worse and worse, going through different treatment centers and burning through a lot of therapists, and certainly causing a lot of chaos and worry in my family and amongst my friends, and ultimately reaching a point where I was in a halfway house and had gotten kicked out of there and spent a few days sleeping in parks near Boston, again struggling with IV heroin use and pretty much everything you can name. And I called my parents up because I was young and said, "Oh, you got to come pick me up." And they said, "No, we're not going to do that." Eventually, they actually did find a place for me to go to treatment again out on the West Coast. But there was this kind of funny amount of time before the bed opened up. And my parents were going on a retreat with Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a mindfulness and meditation teacher who just passed away about a year or two ago. And so basically they scooped me up out of this park and plopped me on this retreat with them. In those few days, which were my first few days sober, suddenly things really were transformative for me. It was a pretty simple retreat, like most retreats are. My heart felt like it just really exploded and burst open. My mind, I started to feel more clear. I started to feel more engaged with life, more creative again, feeling like life had some meaning again and was worth living in a different way. I went to treatment and I really did then spend a lot of time in nature, spent a lot of time connecting with others, spent a lot of time just continuing to practice mindfulness, to practice meditation. It was really life-changing for me, and I feel so grateful that I discovered those practices when I was relatively young, and discovered sobriety when I was relatively young. I've now actually been sober for more than 20 years. And as I kept going down that path, just more things kept opening up to me and becoming more clear, and opportunities presented themselves. And I think that those practices allowed me to be open to those things and see the doors and walk through them. For me, ultimately, the getting sober was the most important foundation, and then starting to build these other skills on top of it, and discovering that life doesn't get any easier, but we get more skills, or I feel like I got more skills for how to deal with it. When I got started on this journey, I had the tiniest bit of hope. Okay, maybe this meditation thing will be helpful. Maybe this 12-step thing will be helpful. Maybe this therapy thing or these people can help me. And what started to happen was the more I relied on those things and utilized these different practices, these different tools in my life, was that little bit of hope started to turn into faith, right? Okay, I did this yesterday and it worked. Now I feel comfortable that I can do it tomorrow and it's worked. It is possible that we can get through these things and not fall into depression, not fall into a trauma reaction, not fall into anxiety, and certainly not for me. I feel so grateful that I haven't fallen back into active addiction. I think just keep showing up. I think also one of the things that's been so helpful for me, I discovered mindfulness and meditation 20 years ago, and about probably 10 years ago, learning more about self-compassion, and that inner critic in my head that says, you're not good enough, there's something wrong with you. And that's maybe for some of us the voice of caregivers or bullies or abusive people we've had in our lives, that I don't have to believe that voice. Like, there's that cliche bumper sticker that says, "Don't believe everything you think," and I was just like, "Oh yeah, haha." But it's true. It's amazingly liberating that I don't have to believe all of my thoughts. You can really tune into, or try to tune into, what are the more helpful thoughts, whether that's listening to or listening for a higher power in your life, or something spiritual, or another philosophical or theological or spiritual kind of paradigm or framework, that can be a more powerful voice until we start to discover our own more inner compassionate voice, helpful voice that really helps us through those really hard times.